Are you a movie buff? Do you love dissecting and analyzing your favorite films? Look no further than the Projection Booth podcast. Join host Mike White and a bevy of guest experts as they explore the history, themes, and legacy of cult classics, obscure gems, and mainstream hits. Join us every week for a unique and engaging look at your favorite movies. So sit back, grab some popcorn, and tune in to the Projection Booth podcast, available on all major podcast platforms.
Hello, filthy movie lovers. My name is Gentry Austin.
And I'm Casey Scott.
And we're the hosts of the Sin Syndicate, film podcast for something weirdos, anti-criterion bros, and Joseph Sarno aficionados. Join us semi-weekly as we peer into the adults-only theaters and sticky-floored cinemas of the golden age of sexploitation, when the morals were loose, the laws were murky, and the intercourse was all simulated. Find us now on the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Good evening, and welcome to Night Gallery.
Thank you, Rod. And I want to welcome everyone to Midnight Viewing, where once a month we talk all about your follow-up to The Twilight Zone, Rod Serling's Night Gallery.
They say it's Rod Serling's Night Gallery, and it isn't really Rod Serling's Night Gallery, it's somebody else's.
Oh, we know. We talk about it a lot. Your curators at Midnight Viewing are the Projection Booth's Mike White.
What can happen to human beings when trust is wiped out by suspicion?
And CultureCast's Chris Stashew.
Small boy encased in a crystal ball.
And I'm Father Malone.
The kind of thing that usually infests nightmares.
Join us monthly at Midnight Viewing, the Night Gallery podcast at weirdingwaymedia.com.
Doesn't remotely belong to me. I have no proprietary interest in that at all.
Weirding Way Media.
Hello, creeps. It's me, John Kassir, the voice of the Crypt Keeper, and you're listening to Chronicles from the Crypt.
Casualty Chris.
And this is Father Malone.
And we are the hosts of Chronicles from the Crypt, a twice-a-month look at the cult horror anthology series Tales from the Crypt that originally aired on HBO from 1989 to 1996.
Yeah, now the series was based on the 1950s EC comics. In each of our podcasts, we're going to be talking about at least two episodes. Well, let me start again. I'm sorry. Now, the series was based on the 1950s EC comics. In each podcast, we'll be talking about two episodes of the show. And along the way, we're going to have a few podcasts coming about movies or other Tales-related TV shows and some tangentially related material that bears a striking resemblance to Tales from the Crypt.
On this episode of Chronicles from the Crypt, we're going to be talking about episode 3 and 4 of season 1, Dig That Cat, He's Real Gone, and Only Sin Deep. So, we'll let the Crypt Keeper introduce the first episode.
Good evening, film fans, and welcome to my Crawley Crypt. This little drama is about one of life's unexpected pleasures. Dying, that is. Most of us only get to do it once, and it's all over before you can really enjoy it. But one man did get to die again, and he liked it so much, he started doing it for a living. This is the story of Ulrich the Undying, a sideshow performer who found death not only fun, but profitable. In fact, he is dying to put on a show for you right now.
All right, so we're going to be talking about Dig That Cat, He's Real Gone. First, the episode aired June 10th, 1989. It is directed by Richard Donner, written by Terry Black, stars Joe Pantoliano and Robert Wool, and it stars Joe Pantoliano as a bum that displays an ability to resurrect himself after having a cat brain, heart, thymus gland, something grafted to his own brain. So, Mike.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
So, Mike, what did you think of this episode?
Upon its initial airing, I thought it was great. Upon review, it is a troubled episode with a troubled premise. I still kind of enjoy it. There's a lot to like in the episode. I do think I think Joey Pantoliano is pretty good in it. Let me mention just for a second, because you mentioned that it was written by Terry Black. Now, Terry happens to be the brother of Shane Black, Kiss
Shane
Kiss
Black
Bang Bang and
Shane Black of
Lethal Weapon fame. Yeah, and Terry Black wrote a movie directly before this episode. I think it was like 1987 or 88, called Dead Heat. Have you ever seen this movie?
No, but I know what it's about.
Yeah, it's a buddy cop movie where one of the partners gets killed and then resurrected. So it's a buddy cop zombie horror action thing, sort of, I guess, kind of based on Lethal Weapon, his brother Shane Black's script, and it stars Treat Williams and Joe Piscopo, and it is fucking terrible.
Sir, how dare you besmirch the good name of Joe Piscopo?
Look, I know I'm the first person in history to do so, but I'm going to stand by the fact that he cannot act. Anyway, Dig That Cat, He's Real Gone. I don't know, man. It's like, Richard Donner, it seems like in a situation like this, where they get to do like a half-hour episode, there's no real big money, studio money, like riding on the episode. They tend to want to sort of stretch out as a filmmaker, which to me ends up feeling a little bit like watching a senior thesis from film school. And this episode definitely suffers from that. There's a lot of sort of jump cuts and fisheye lenses and zooming in and talking to the camera and everything that worked in an episode like Man Who Was Death falls flat here, because Richard Donner thinks that that because this is a comic book, we're going to comic it up, which is interesting because, of course, he created one of the best comic book films of all time with the original Superman with Christopher Reeve. But here he kind of is out of his depth, and and it might be even by the late 1980s, the influence of sort of music videos from MTV was holding sway a bit, and I think that is another sort of pitfall he was kind of falling into here. Not that I don't love Richard Donner. I think he's done a lot of great movies, including The Omen. But here his direction is lacking. And let's talk about the premise of the thing. Now, this is not his fault or Terry Black's fault. This goes all the way back to Bill Gaines and Al Feldstein, who wrote the original comic book. The idea that cats actually have 9 lives because of a gland in their brain is cuckoo. Yeah?
Well... So I don't really draw a whole lot of umbrage with the fact that cats have 9 lives. I mean, this is Tales from the Crypt. My problem I have with it is, so you have the ability to have 9 lives, and this is what you're using it for.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we should point out the fact that Ulrich the Undying basically just becomes a carnival performer where he kills himself for a random tent of people. And, let me qualify that. So, in the 50s when they wrote this comic, that might have been the only viable option for you. But in 1989, he could have a network deal or, a film where he does it, or, there could have been so many ways, or not even as a performer. You're right. He can't die. If you're going to make money, there are probably a myriad ways in order to do that. But he doesn't really engage in anything other than this. Yeah,
it's a really, like you said, it's a really weird concept that doesn't age well, because he's like a carnival performer. How much money is he really making? And it's and the problem is it would be okay if it took place in the 30s or 40s, and a lot of the episodes, there are several episodes that take place at carnivals and sideshows. But no, this takes place in modern era. So you've got this weird disconnect where you have Gustav Vintas as the doctor who is, putting this gland in his head and all that, and you've got that whole plot at the beginning, and Joe Pantoliano is clearly like a junkie. And then you have the later, the other 2/3 of the episode that's Robert Wool as the carnival barker and Joe Pantoliano's love interest played by Kathleen York, and you've got this weird carnival thing that feels very 30s and 40s, and it's like there's a huge disconnect between the two. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't
of all the things you can do with immortality, like, this is the best way you can think of to make money. Like, why don't you rob banks or something? Like,
why don't you just live forever? You could just live forever.
Right, yeah, that's the thing. Sure. Like, how about, you just go get gainful employment and work your way up in a company. You'll be the president eventually. I don't know. I mean, look, it was a junkie who was like, looking for quick cash, and here it is. But again, like you're saying, like, how clearly he wasn't getting much of the door at each of these carnival things. So, like, by the end, he's like, I want 100% of the door. Like, you should have been getting that from the beginning, man. Like, you're fucking killing yourself over and over again. You've only got a finite amount of times to do it. And, not to be a stickler or anything, but, once his body has been pierced and shot and all these things, like, I get he comes back to life, but does his body heal itself rather? Like, they don't really get into that.
Well, and again, like, I think that's where this is us looking at this through 21st century movie TV goer lens, as opposed to, I don't know. I mean, I guess this is the 90s, so not really. It feels kind of stupid. It feels like they're just assuming that the audience is dumb and isn't going to be like, but if he comes back, if he got his head cut off, is his head just going to be fucking alive? Like,
right, exactly. And you know what? And it is an assumption that maybe the audience isn't going to ask the question. But it seems to me that if you put the question to the writer or director at the time, they kind of would have shrugged and said, come on, it's a comic book, which to me has always been the problem up until, the past 10, 15 years of people adapting comic books. It's like, well, we'll just, it doesn't really matter. It's sort of the thing that drives me crazy when, like, somebody attempts a horror movie who hasn't done it before. And they're like, well, it doesn't really matter. It's just a silly horror movie. Like, believe in your genre, because there are fans who are looking for it and looking to dissect it or ultimately just be satisfied by it. And this one, I mean, it is kind of a trifle and a bit of a lark. But like, if it is only just a lark, then the sort of big twist at the end doesn't mean a goddamn thing because you haven't believed in your shit from the get go.
Yeah, the twist at the end, I feel like it's really you see it coming from like a mile away. Mm-hmm. And if you're I mean, they mention the fact cats have 9 lives so many times that if you don't pick up on it, it's like the episode definitely didn't. The episode definitely didn't hide the fact that this is where it was going.
Right.
So I do like the framing device that they use of like each, like the episode's broken up into like each death act. And they're all different, and they all feel really unique and interesting. They're very stylistically different.
Sure.
Down to like Robert Wool's mustache changes in every single one.
Yeah.
And I like that. Joe Pantoliano is narrating.
Yes, from a coffin that he's been buried in. Like that was kind of cool. Sort of a face down view of him, like effectively recounting the events in his own head, but really speaking to us. Like I thought that was good.
Yeah.
I wanted to say Robert Wool is really good in this episode. I know most people remember him from that show Arliss, but I thought he was a very viable stand-up comedian and not too bad as a dramatic actor when it called for him to be. I think he's the best thing in the episode. He seems to be the only actor who not only understood the tone but could sort of deliver, because you can tell the actress playing his girlfriend kind of got the tone, but she's so over the top. She goes way too far over the top that she just kind of becomes an annoyance. I think Robert Wool was in that sweet spot of knowing how ridiculous this premise is, but also how grounded you needed to make it in order to sell it.
Well, and the other thing that really bummed me out is that the characters in the episode, like you said, Joe Pantoliano, Kathleen York, like she just turns on him for no reason because he's getting so much money.
Right.
I guess. It again, a lot of the stuff in this episode feels really unearned. And that for me is a problem when you've got 27 minutes or 23 minutes to tell a story.
Yeah, I mean, you could say that like the runtime on an episode like this is a constraint, and it is, but if it's really good and thoughtful, it never feels either that short or like anything is getting short shrift.
I honestly feel like this episode doesn't utilize the time very well.
No, not at all. And it might be a problem that they feel that we have to like run through or really showcase each of the deaths, when honestly we could have just focused on one or two and really sort of dramatize or you know what I mean. We really could have like focused on those and seen the effects of it and everything, and then even had a montage of the other ones, and then spent a little bit more time with the characters or something. But they, if you go back and read the comic, I don't know if you've read this one, every scene from the comic is in this story. It's almost like he just retyped it in screenplay format, although the deaths are a little bit different in the comic book. Like at one point he goes over Niagara Falls without a barrel. Like that's one of them. Or he actually jumped out of an airplane like at a state fair and like splatted on the ground. And there is no girlfriend character in the original comic. There is just some guy he hired to like be his valet or something, who turns on him and kills him for the money. Even in that case, that actually makes sense. As opposed to the girl who's in love with him, who's getting the money with him anyway.
That's the thing with the source material, is they were able to do really kind of exciting stuff, like going over Niagara Falls without a barrel.
Right.
That would be awesome if we saw that, but the stuff that they do show, again, it's stylistically interesting and it's different, but like you said, I do agree that they focus a little bit too much on the kills. And the episode suffers for it because we don't get to see the characters doing much. I mean, we get to see Joe Pantoliano turning on Gustav Ventus, and then we get to see him getting turned on by Kathleen York, which I guess is the episode's way of coming full circle.
Right.
And the twist at the end is it's nothing.
Yeah, I mean, he failed to take into account that the cat had to die in the first place, and that was the one life that he didn't realize he had sacrificed. Hooray. Like, it isn't that shocking, and it doesn't feel like his actions have actually, I mean, he kills the doctor in a car accident. I get it, but for some reason it still doesn't feel like a comeuppance at the end.
No, it doesn't.
Doesn't feel like that, and on the flip side of that, it doesn't feel like we don't feel sympathetic for his character that this is going to happen to him. It's just kind of an ending. None of these characters have been very pleasant to begin with, and but it still doesn't feel like triumphant that they get their due, which is a problem, because when a Tales from the Crypt episode or comic is working well, then you at least like feel a bit of catharsis seeing the villain get their comeuppance.
Well, and that's my problem is, like we said with The Man Who Was Death, while the character of Niles Talbot is doing bad stuff, he is a somewhat sympathetic character because they've given you a reason for him to be sympathetic. In this episode, you're just waiting for Joey Pantoliano, Joey Pants as they call him in the industry apparently, to get his comeuppance.
Yeah, it's a foregone conclusion.
Yeah, he's going to get destroyed at the end of the episode. And
it doesn't feel inevitable. It just feels like, from the moment we meet him, we know this is going to happen.
Right. And that's one of my ultimate problems with this episode is it's okay, but the best parts of this episode don't involve Joey Pantoliano, and we spend so much time with him that it's kind of a disappointment.
Yeah. I would like to point out one thing, because I actually did, when rewatching it, notice that I actually liked the editing on this particular episode, and this was done by Steve Kemper, who has been an editor forever. I mean, he did the film Face Off, the John Woo movie. He did New Jack City, of all things, but he's got a film coming out this year, the Meg, the Jason Statham giant shark movie. So he's actually still sort of viable in the industry, where it seems like everyone else involved with this episode is not.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to everybody in this episode. Joe Pantoliano's just he was on Sopranos for a while. Mm-hmm. And I haven't seen him much anything else. Again, I mean, one of my favorite things he was in was Congo. But
I guess the last good performance I saw out of him was in Memento. I don't even know how many years ago that was. It was like 17 years ago, 18 years ago, something like that. right around the time he kind of had a resurgence because of, or not, maybe not a resurgence. He'd always been around, but after The Matrix, I think he seemed to be in demand for a while there.
Because he played Cypher in The Matrix.
Yeah.
Not Cypher. Yeah, Cypher, right?
Yeah, Cypher.
Yeah. So, would you skip this episode or watch it?
I think ultimately, I think I would skip it. I don't. I can't see. It was never one of my favorites. It wasn't one I watched all the time. Although I would occasionally watch it because, when the series first came on, there was a pilot episode specifically, and that was the first 3 episodes together. So I kind of always watched it by association just because I knew it was part of that sort of triumvirate of Man Who Was Death and Alter the House and Dig That Cat, He's Real Gone. Also, I do love the title. It's a great title. Dig That Cat, He's Real Gone.
The title may be the best part.
It actually is the best part. And as a comic, it works a lot better than it did as an episode. No, I'm not going to recommend it. I don't think it's garbage necessarily, but it's a soft skip. It's an almost, like it could have been maybe in another filmmaker's hands or another writer's hands. Could have been very interesting. I just think they went for full-on carnival in every direction, all the worst parts of a carnival, where it could have been a lot darker and more interesting. And they kind of went for candy-colored and silly. So, no, don't watch the episode if you can avoid it.
I'm with you. I would say that this is a light skip as well. It's better than most of the episodes of the show, especially the much later stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But it suffers being paired up against some of the early stuff because Season 1 and Season 2, Season 1 is only 6 episodes. Season 2 is kind of where we start getting into the really exciting, good stuff. So, let's take a quick break. We'll play the interview we have with Robert Wool, and when we get back, the Crypt Keeper will introduce the next episode, Only Sin Deep.
What was the audition process like going into Tales from the Crypt for you?
There was no audition process.
Really?
What had happened was Marion Dougherty, who is the legendary casting director who they just had an HBO documentary about her called Casting By, who found so much talent. She basically started the casting directing business. She was the grande dame. She gave everybody from Dustin Hoffman to Gene Hackman to Robert Duvall to all these people their first parts everywhere. Anyway, she was a fan of mine when I was doing stand-up comedy. We had met a couple of times. And basically, she brought me in. I had just come off. She had brought me in to meet Tim Burton when I auditioned for Batman. So Batman, I don't believe had come out yet. And Marion was casting Tales from the Crypt. And she just called me up and said, Dick Donner's directing this Tales from the Crypt. There's a part I think you'd be great in it. Will you do it? And I said, yes. And that's the audition process.
Huh. That's interesting. Your character is called Barker, and he's the sort of ring master, I guess, for this circus act. Did you have a lot of input into what your character was, or did they sort of tell you what you were supposed to do?
Yes, there was input. The director was Dick Donner, Richard Donner. And when I think back of what fun it was to do this show, because nobody knew what it was yet. It was a pilot. There was the first 3 episodes were the pilot, basically, which they made into like a TV movie for HBO. Mm-hmm. And so it was going to be Zemeckis, Dick Donner, and somebody else, another big hitter. And so they each directed one of the first 3 episodes. They were all made at the same time. Mm-hmm. And they were part of the 90 minutes. So it was so Dick Donner, it was so much fun. And Donner, I don't know if I had 3 lines in the script. Donner just said, okay. He was one of these great old, I want to say old time veteran directors who was the most fun to work with. Just, he had started back in the day. He told me stories of starting back in the day of doing stuff like Wanted Dead or Alive with Steve McQueen and all these shows. And he talked about being a young guy, a young director during the 60s in London. And he said there was never anything like swinging London and having a job. He goes, the youth had money. Being in London in the 60s and having money and the Beatles and everything was going on there. He said there was never anything like it. And I think he directed everything from all the Lethal Weapon movies to Maverick. I mean, he did so much stuff, Donner. And he was such a great guy. And he would talk to you during the take. I mean, he'd never know your name. He'd never know your name. He'd say, Jimmy, Jackie, Joey, Harry, Robert, listen, in this scene, and here comes, you be doing your scene, and here comes the camera, it's coming at you. And it was such a trip that between me and Joey Pants, we laughed harder. There's one scene, I don't remember which one it was, but we blew about a dozen takes cracking up, and Donna was cracking up, and it was one of those giggle scenes. It's the most I've ever had. It was great. I had no lines, and I don't know I don't, I just had a great time. I was basically, I was a carnival barker, and when I was in college, I had performed in the medicine show at Astro World in Houston, Texas. Astro World was one of those theme parks, Six Flags.
Uh-huh.
So they had a medicine show, and the carnival barker always started out with, come, gather round, come from far, come from near, gather round over here. So I remembered that. So I was just, doing all that stuff like that. At the same time, I was doing a really bad impression of John Huston. And I knew it was going to be so bad that no one would know what I was doing.
Right.
So I'm, gather round, come from far, come from near, gather round right over here. It was, it's almost, by the way, who also did John Huston much better than I was Daniel Day-Lewis, and There Was Me Blood. I'm an oil man. He did everything but just say, the future, Mr. Gitz, the future. So that's what I'm doing. I'm doing a bad John Huston. And I don't remember, I just remember laughing more than anything else.
I mean, yeah, the parts of that episode that you're in are probably the funnier parts of the episode, because Joe Pantoliano's parts are very almost macabre, I think. In fact,
I actually, Joe will tell you, he kept saying, I was feeding Joey lines when he was doing it with me. He liked me, and he would take them and build on them and everything else. That's about as much as I've laughed ever in a couple of days shoot was that.
Really? There's a lot of dark comedy in Tales from the Crypt. And do you like darker comedy, or do you like sort of lighter humor?
It's when it works, it's really funny. Dark comedy. There should be humor in everything. It's hard to say. It's like, what kind of music do you like? If you're writing with humor, there's only two types. There's tragedy and there's comedy. There's two masks. Uh-huh. So what kind of comedy do you like? I like good comedy. I like when it works. How do you say that? Two people paint a picture and they can see the same thing, and one is, it works artistically, and the other one just doesn't work for you. And especially with comedy, it's so subjective. It's so personal. Try to get three people, of different especially of different generations, to agree on a comedy. That's really tough. Mm-hmm. But when it works, it's great. When it works, it's wonderful. But that's anything.
Right. Did you watch much of the show after the episode that you filmed?
Honestly, no.
Okay. Are you good friends with Joey Pantoliano? Because you called him Joey Pants. And I just thought that was an interesting nickname.
Well, everybody calls him Joey Pants.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, sure. We've remained friendly. Yes, whenever we see each other, it's very nice and very warm. You don't see each other all that often. We're on different coasts a lot of times. But yeah, we got together about a year ago. So he was great. He's a great guy. Funny.
So when you were filming it, did you think the show itself was going to last for 7 seasons and 2-3 movies?
I was thinking about the next scene. It wasn't my show.
Right.
No. You're just thinking about the work that day. Time, and does a director like it?
Right. Did you feel when you were filming it, we talked to William Sadler about the first episode.
Yes.
And he said that it felt very guerrilla filmmaking. Was it sort of on the run, let's go here, do this shot, let's go over here and do this? Or did they have more of a plan in place when they were filming your portion of the opening?
There was a plan. We played with dialogue more and stuff like that, but no, there was a definite plan. I think it's different directors. Who directed Bill's one, if that was the Zemeckis' one or the other. But Donner comes from planning. It was Lucy Good. Everything was set up. It was fun. Remember, he had come from old-time TV. Mm-hmm. He had done all these shows. So he might have directed a Twilight Zone for all I knew. He did all those shows. So he came from that world. So this wasn't like guerrilla filmmaking for him. This is like basics.
Right.
He was older.
When you were working on this episode of the show, did it open any doors for you later in your career as an actor and a writer and director?
Oh, sure. Well, it opened doors because you get to, it's like anything else. You get to work with people. When I started the HBO series, The Arliss Show, I had asked Joey to play a key part in one of the episodes. And so you make friends and you work with great people. You're lucky. You're very fortunate.
I don't know if you remember this detail about your episode of Tales from the Crypt, but your character, every scene that he's in, his mustache and facial hair changes pretty drastically.
I think that was deliberate. I think I threw that idea by Dick Donner. I mean, that wasn't. You can't blame hair and makeup for that. That was a deliberate. That was one of the things we just see what the hell. See if the audience picks up on this, because you had to believe, is this guy's beard and mustache real to begin with? So why wouldn't he have a whole 10 of them? And he puts on whatever one that he feels like right then.
Right. And your character sort of gets a little towards the end when Joe Pantoliano sort of tries to cheat him out of the funds from the show. He gets a little bit more sort of menacing, I thought. He doesn't kill Joe Pantoliano's character, but he doesn't really seem to be sad about it when Joe Pantoliano dies. And I just was wondering if
I'm sure you're right. I haven't seen the episode in, I don't know, what year is it? What year was it on?
Let's see. 1989.
1989. I probably haven't seen it since 1990. So that's only 25 years. Quarter of a century. Holy shit. I just remember the fun. You're telling me the episode, I'm going, yeah, I seem to remember that. Yeah, I guess. Listen, I had such a great time. How one of those things when you have a good time, yes, you remember things, but more often you just remember it as a whole. It's one of those moments you just say, everything about that was good. Yeah, I could say this, and this, and they're all true, but I don't remember. The memory as a whole. Mm-hmm. It's just, but that's great. I do remember the thing about the mustache. I'm so glad you brought that up. I had forgotten about that.
Yeah, that was one of the biggest things I noticed from that episode was the mustache, because it's not accidental. It's definitely not accidental. I mean, they're completely different.
Yeah, I mean, we had to make sure that it didn't look like continuity and makeup and hair screwed up.
Right.
You had to know. Otherwise, it's not funny. Then you just think you're dealing with amateurs.
Right.
I'm glad somebody picked it up.
Is there anything else? Are there any specific moments from filming that you remember? I mean, I know, again, it's been a long time, like we just mentioned, but any specific stories or interactions that you had while on the set that stick out particularly in your mind?
There was a girl in the wardrobe department who had this amazing body. I remember that. There was a girl, oh man, what a body she had. Wow. That's, again, it goes back to the whole good memories about the whole, going to work and laughing and having fun. And I just remember this girl with this very sexy body. Anyway, that's the other thing I remember. I mean, everything was just great.
So are you working on anything right now that you'd like to talk about?
This week actually is kind of, I just joined 60 Minutes Sports. This week will be the first show on Showtime. I'm going to be like doing essays, like they're Andy Rooney, I guess. So I'm doing that. And there's another project, but it's too soon. I just did a pilot for the Travel Channel, which is a lot of fun. That's kind of unique.
A pilot for the Travel Channel?
Yeah, very unique. Based on the book 1,000 Places to See Before You Die. I did these these comedy specials on HBO where I did them in front of a student body, these history lectures and stuff. So this was a comedy. It was called Assume the Position.
Yeah, and that's right. I saw that.
Yeah, well, this is sort of what they're looking for. What we did is sort of a cross between Assume the Position. We took it on the road. So we're talking about the history. We went to Paris. And it's sort of like a travel thing, but it was more than that. And I'm telling you stories about facts and figures and things you don't know and stories and making jokes. So, it was like Assume the Position was, a touch. And not, well, I don't want to put myself in Anthony Bourdain's category, but that's what they're going for. So we'll see. We'll see. It was a lot of fun to do.
Cool. I'll keep an eye out for that. That sounds interesting. I liked Assume the Position. I saw that.
Thank you. We may do another one of those, too.
Oh, cool. Can you tell me a little bit about 60 Minutes Sports? I'm not sure I know much about that.
They do on Showtime. They have a show. 60 Minutes has a show. 60 Minutes Sports. The same people, done at the same place, same set, and it's just sports oriented. It's just they give you sports stories. It's probably the best comparable would be Real Sports with Brian Gumbel on HBO.
Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? Looks like I just bought 7 years bad luck. Speaking of bad luck, it's time for another nasty little terror tale from my Crowley collection. And this one's got a message too. It's a story about greed, death, and a girl who learned that beauty is only sin deep.
All right, so we're going to talk about episode 4 of season 1, Only Sin Deep. It was the first episode that aired outside of, like you said, Mike, the 3-episode pilot for the show. It aired June 14th, 1989. It's directed by Howard Deutsch, written by Fred Dekker. Yes, Fred Dekker of the Predator script fame. It stars Lea Thompson, Britt Leach, and Brett Cullen, and it features Lea Thompson as a hooker who learns that beauty is only skin deep. We also learn as an audience that Lea Thompson cannot do a New York accent to save her life.
Yeah, rewatching this episode, I can't even pin down the accent she's doing, because it doesn't sound New York to me. I think she was kind of like, up until this point, I think the hooker with the heart of gold, stereotype was in people's heads, and for some reason, actresses up until the 90s, I guess, thought all prostitutes spoke in this sort of tough patois, this the tough girl thing, like a noir gun mall or something. And not only can she not do an accent, what I learned is unless she's playing, I think, effectively herself, which she kind of gets to a little bit later in the episode, where she comes into her own with the money and everything, where the accent goes away, where now she's kind of a sophisticate, I guess. Her performance is absolute garbage. She's real bad. Her range is not great. Having said that, she is really beautiful. There's a reason she's the kind of girl next door in Back to the Future, in some of the early roles. She's easy on the eyes. I don't mean to sound so misogynistic about that, but in this episode in particular, it's all about how beautiful she is. So I feel kind of comfortable mentioning it. Her performance is terrible. The episode itself, I guess, as a way of recapping. Well, first of all, it's. You know what's interesting, man? Most of the episodes of Tales from the Crypt are not actually based on Tales from the Crypt, the comic book.
Right.
There was EC Comics had a series of titles. They had Tales from the Crypt, they had Haunt of Fear, and Vault of Horror. The 2 episodes we're talking tonight are both from Haunt of Fear. And this particular one was written by a guy named Otto Binder, and it was drawn by Jack Kamen, who's maybe my favorite outside of maybe Jack Davis. One of my favorite artists from that era. And the story itself is we're talking about a prostitute who wants to sort of rise up in the world, but she needs a stake. She needs just a little bit of money to sort of make herself over, so she'll become attractive to wealthy men, and then she can leave the whole life behind. And she finds it in the form of a pawn shop owner who agrees to give her $10,000 so she can, if she'll sell him her beauty, or pawn it for 4 months, which she thinks is ridiculous. And of course, it comes back to haunt her quite literally. She's really bad in the episode. And I actually kind of like the episode. I like the plot. I like the story. I think Howard Deutsch actually did a really good job directing it. There are many shots in the thing that I think are actually kind of beautiful. And they kind of lay into the violence a little bit later in the episode when she guns down her paramour, played by Brett Cullen, which is they went to town with those the blood squibs, and when she sort of blasts them apart. There's a lot to like in the episode. Unfortunately, Lea Thompson is her performance is so dreadful. I can't even kind of deal with it. And I should point out, at one point her character begins to age rapidly. The makeup is not fantastic. It's a little shabby.
Well, there's a reason you don't see the old lady at the beginning of the episode. So there's a little bit of circularity in the plot. Yeah. It's one of those. Lea Thompson goes to the pawn star, Jesus Christ. Rick Harrison's pawn shop. She goes to Britt Leach's character, and he takes her beauty by making a facial cast of her. And you notice at one point an old lady comes in and starts screaming at Britt Leach's character and saying, like, you bastard, you took my beauty, da-da-da-da-da-da. Okay, fine. So you kind of have that in the back of your head going through the episode. And then at the end of the episode, Lea Thompson, she does the exact same thing. Yeah. And there's like that's like kind of cute circularity in a way, like, oh, it kind of comes full circle. Yeah. But the old woman makeup is god awful. In a way that late 80s, early 90s old people makeup was and still is.
Yeah, it can be.
Yeah, it's not great. And Tales from the Crypt was working on a pretty low budget. So again, if you're coming into this expecting, the best budget known to man, I can guarantee you I know where they were spending most of the budget, and it was on the Crypt Keeper. Yeah. I mean, that most of the budget went into creating the Crypt Keeper puppet. But yeah, Lea Thompson, not even good. Just straight bad. Yeah. Which is unfortunate because I feel like a way to fix this episode, 100% fix it, is there's an episode in season 2, the first episode of season 2, called Dead Right that feels Demi Moore and Jeffrey Tambor, where Demi Moore is playing a kind of like a temp at an office, and she gets fired, and it's a good episode. And I feel like if you had swapped Demi Moore and Lea Thompson, this would have been a much better episode because Demi Moore has that brashness to her up front. Yeah. And Lea Thompson is so well known as Marty McFly's mom in Back to the Future that it's unbelievable. Like, because of what you know her in, you don't believe her in this role at all. Yeah. Oh, hey, how you doing? Hey, I'm Lea Thompson. Like, that's exactly what it sounds like. Yeah. It's really bad. It's unbelievable. You don't believe for a second that her character is like a streetwise hooker. No. And if it had been Demi Moore, they could have just written it as not like a streetwise hooker, but just like a hooker who is like always checking herself in the mirror to make sure she's not like getting wrinkles. And so that makes more sense.
Yeah, that would have been a perfect swap. And you know what? Lea Thompson is not helped by the dialogue Fred Decker wrote for this sort of tough lingo, street language. It feels pulled from every Z-grade street film from the 70s or even the 60s, honestly. It's all like tough talk, and none of it rings true.
Especially not coming out of her mouth.
No, certainly not. But you're right. I think Demi Moore, in this case, would have been the perfect person to play this part. It would have elevated the script, or rather the episode in general, like 100%. Because I kind of like the episode overall. Also, this is weird subplot with the pawnbroker. Like, he's trying to rejuvenate his dead wife? What's going on there?
So, well, that's the other thing that's kind of the knock against this episode that I don't like. I don't like the subplot because it's one of those subplots that just, it's like, well, we're not going to explain it. There's just this guy's up to no good. He's up to no good. And I don't like that because in something like this where you've got 23 minutes to tell a story, he's up to no good and there's a weird supernatural aspect because ultimately this episode is not a supernatural episode. There's like a fringe aspect to it. Right. That's supernatural. And it just doesn't work because it makes no sense.
When it was just about this pawnbroker who specializes in this odd thing where he's paying people for some aspect of their personality, like that to me is interesting. But the fact that he's got a corpse in the back room that he's trying to rejuvenate, it adds zero to the plot. I don't care why he's taking her beauty or anyone's beauty to like rejuvenate his dead wife. I don't care. It is a problem, as you said, because we've got such a tight running time, and this is really a character piece. Like, let's spend more time with those characters. Like I could have done, not in the case of Lea Thompson, but if another actress had been playing it, another scene or two with her, like dealing with her life before and after, or any time period. Like, giving us the actual reason that he's taking their beauty, it's such a left turn and into a brick wall. Like, who cares? It's not like the wife comes back to life or something, or like now looks like Lea Thompson or has stolen her face. Like, any of these things could have been more interesting instead of just, well, now, you know that corpse we saw earlier? Well, now she's a beautiful young girl again. Okay.
Yeah. It just doesn't make a lot of sense, and it's not explored enough to matter. Either make an episode about Britt Leach's character as the pawnbroker, or make an episode about Lea Thompson as the hooker. Don't do both.
Right.
Don't try to mix them, because one is going to get the short stick. And in this case, it was the pawnbroker character that got the short stick. And it's just not good. It's weird. It feels tacked on, and it feels too similar to like other stuff we've seen where it's like stuff with corpses later in the show that are done way better. I mean, even like 5 episodes from now, you've got an episode where a character comes back to life after being a corpse. And
yeah,
that episode's great.
Yeah,
this
I agree.
episode suffers from having any sort of supernatural element. I mean, there was no supernatural element in The Man Who Was Death. It didn't need it. And this didn't need it either.
You kind of do, in that what's driving it is this pawnbroker who is purchasing her beauty, and when she...
Right, but I mean, they could just do it as like some sort of black magic mumbo-jumbo.
Oh, sure.
Nothing that needs to be explained.
Right.
Either just like mention it like barely, or go into full detail. Don't do this like half-ass nonsense.
Right, and you know what's funny? Like, if you go back and read the original comic, it's almost beat for beat the same story, and but they don't get into any further explanation of why he's doing it. In fact, in the comic book, it's really just a shakedown. It's in the now this is from 1955 or something, but he gives her $1,000 initially, and when she comes back, he's like, now it's $100,000, and that is a huge deal back then. And here he gives her $10,000 and she needs $100,000. And at this point, she's basically with a guy that she can get that money from anyway. So, you know, her like going off and like murdering him just feels a little bit weird.
Well, that whole end sequence and that's the other thing is, because they focus any time on the Britt Leach stuff, the stuff with Brett Cullen just feels, again, kind of tacked on.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, she meets him at this party, she's being kind of flirty with him, and then it just fast forwards, like, 3 months or something, and they're, like, madly in love, and you're just like, this is just, it doesn't even, like, it doesn't matter. You're not going to put any time and effort into showing their relationship, which is what we're supposed to care about.
Right.
Because we're supposed to care about her character, and then she starts aging, and then Britt Leach shakes her down, and you're just like, okay, well, we kind of see where this is going. He's not going to recognize her. It's like, I mean, who cares at this point? You're not going to focus on one story or the other, so why are you even doing this then?
My favorite bit of weirdness of the episode is that she doesn't understand what's happening to her, so she goes to a doctor because she thinks she has cancer or something, and he explains that they can't figure out what's doing it to her, and he says, have you come into any contact with any bit of weirdness in the past few months? And she remembers for the first time in 4 months that she sold her beauty to this guy, which is probably a memorable moment in her life. But not only that, she actually has the pawn slip in her purse. It's such a fucking convenient plot device. Like, if she's keeping it in her purse the whole time, then she would surely know that the due date was coming, and may have tried to do something about it. I don't know. Maybe she just doesn't believe in voodoo, but it just seems weird that she was carrying it with her the whole time.
Well, she just forgot because she was having so much fun with Brett Cullen's character. You didn't catch that?
Oh man, no, I'm yeah, okay. That's not a failure of the writing or the episode itself. It was an audience member thing. I apologize.
That's convenient on their part, right?
I'm sorry, Fred Decker and Howard Deutsch.
It's a bad episode from a lot of standpoints, but the premise is fun. But most everything else is pretty bad.
Yeah, I mean, look, as I said, I think it's well directed. I think the plot is much more interesting than the previous episode, Dig That Cat, He's Real Gone. And it could have really worked as a character piece about somebody struggling, and as a comment on the sort of the importance we put on beauty. Like, all of these things were there and waiting to be mined. But they kind of just chose to, let's just adapt this comic, and that'll be good enough. And it's kind of a shame. It's this one, more than any of the other failures in the series, to me, actually represents a missed opportunity to have either said something or given us a much more. Look. We could have made. They kind of stacked the deck. I say that phrase a lot. They with the character where she's kind of getting her comeuppance, like where she kills a guy, like in the initial scene, in order to get the money in the first place. So what happens to her is a payoff. But these episodes also work when it's just a regular person who a horrible thing happens to. Like she could have been a social climber who's just like tired of getting the short end of the stick, and then gets there and then has this thing happen to her. It could have been a nice little bit of irony. But I don't know. Ultimately, I'm going to say skip this one.
I do like the twist at the end, though, where she goes outside with the cast of her face and it gets broken. That part I like, because I was like, okay, that's kind of cute, I guess, in a way. Like it's kind of a neat little comeuppance.
There's some good stuff in this episode. It's a fucking drag because I want to recommend it, but Lea Thompson's performance alone prevents me from doing that. And again, just the missed on so many levels. But hey, also look, I'll say this is for me. This is a soft skip. Like you wouldn't be wasting your time in watching this episode because there's a lot in here. I just can't recommend it like out of hand.
No, I'm with you. I can't recommend it either. I think it's okay, not great, but at the end of the day, when you look at the episodes in season 1, all the episodes in season 1 are pretty good.
Yeah.
Compared to some of the later stuff. It's just this episode, with it being essentially a vehicle for Lea Thompson, she does not elevate the episode.
No.
She actively brings it down.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, if it had been another actress that I could have gotten behind and wasn't making such horrible garbage choices, like, I might have been able to overlook some of the other stuff. But she's real bad.
Yeah, she is not good, unfortunately. And again, if they had swapped her with Demi Moore, I think it actually would have been really good.
Oh, absolutely. And she would have been better in that other episode, too, playing that sort of character who, but we'll get to that episode eventually. But you're right. A straight switch in this case would have been beneficial for both episodes.
Well, speaking of episodes upcoming with not great female leads, next episode, we're going to be talking about episode 5 and 6 of season 1. We're going to be closing out season 1, putting it in the rearview mirror. Lover Come Hack to Me and Collection Completed. Lover Come Hack to Me has Amanda Plummer as a ingenue woman who goes on a road trip on her honeymoon with her gold-digging husband, and Collection Completed features M. Emmett Walsh as a curmudgeon old man who hates all of his wife's pets. Until then, where can people find you?
Mr.
Wallace, Mr. Malone, Father Malone.
Father Malone, sucker. Well, if you want to find me on Twitter, I'm at Father Malone 73.
Ooh, look at that. It's not Father Mal 1 anymore.
Not Father Mal 1. No, don't go there. You won't find me. But at Father Malone, one word, 73. Also, you can check out my YouTube channel. I have a show called You've Never Seen about some lesser-known films that need more love and more attention. Check that out. The channel is called Odd 5 Films. And I've got an upcoming podcast entitled You've Never Seen as well, which I co-host with the Red Menace, where we get a little bit more in-depth on some of these movies. Check me out in all of those places. Please do.
And you can check out podcasts that I'm on. I do a movie podcast called The Culture Cast over at culturecast.com. Me and my co-host Eric talk about movies twice a week, new and old movies, so check that out. And Mike, you and I, along with our good friend White Mike, do a Twilight Zone podcast that's coming out very soon called Dreams for Sale. It is the Twilight Zone 1985 podcast.
Absolutely.
So we have that podcast has not gone live yet, but when it does, make sure to head on over to twilightzone85.com to check out that podcast. Mike and I are joined by another Mike to talk about the often forgotten, unfortunately, in some respects, Twilight Zone 1985 that ran for 3 seasons. You can also follow me on Twitter at papastash22. Head on over to chroniclesfromthecrypt.com to check out our feed for the Chronicles from the Crypt podcast. We are also on Spreaker and all Podcatcher apps on iOS and Android. And make sure to follow us on Twitter at ChroniclesFTC. Big thanks, as always, to John Kassir for the intro. to the Chronicles from the Crypt. We'll see you on the next episode, boils and ghouls.